So far as we know, Buddy here is a German Shepherd puppy who is no relation to the great Rin Tin Tin. Don't worry, though, it could happen. It's possible he might grow up to be just as big a star. The rise of Rin Tin Tin is a classic success story. And here's our Rita Braver to tell it.
He's what generation?
He is 12th in line.
Meet Rin Tin Tin, the 12th, spokesdog for the American Humane Association, who recently presided over the ringing of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. And if he seems at home with the cameras and the attention, it's no surprise. This Rin Tin Tin is heir to a dynasty of celebrity canines. After all, a lot of us still remember the adventures of Rin Tin Tin on TV back in the 1950s and 60s.
Yo, Rinty! Yo, Rinty. The number of people who declared Yo, Rinty, which was the sort of signature phrase of the TV show, was heartening.
Heartening enough to inspire Susan Orlean to write a whole book about the legend of Rin Tin Tin.
I think he's a wonderful symbol of something innocently heroic, a living being who has embodied qualities that we have always thought of as American, of being independent, of being tough and brave.
It's a story that may surprise you. Did you know, for instance, that the first Rin Tin Tin was a star in silent movies in the 20s, celebrated as an athlete and an actor?
He had an incredibly expressive face. If you see any of the old movies or even the photographs, he manages to convey something very intelligent and very profound.
Orlean spent a decade tracking down the story.
There's a whole photo album full of this material.
With help from Kevin Halloran, archivist at the Metropolitan Museum in Riverside, California, hometown to Lee Duncan, a young World War I American gunnery corporal.
There's Lee. They're still in France at that time. It's the puppy.
As shown in the film Finding Rin Tin Tin, Duncan discovered a family of German Shepherds following a battle in France.
Rinty, hey!
He named one of them Rin Tin Tin after a popular French folklore character and managed to spirit him into the U.S.
He felt that there was something about the dog that was exceptional.
He even goes as far as writing a screenplay for Rin Tin Tin to star in a movie.
Yes.
How does he get Rin Tin Tin's paw in the door?
You know, Hollywood was very different back then. So Lee literally took the dog, screenplay under one arm, dog's leash in the other, walked up and down Sunset Boulevard, knocking on doors and saying, I've got this terrific dog. I also have the screenplay. Give us a shot.
And the fledgling Warner Brothers did, greenlighting Duncan's film Where the North Begins, with Rinty playing a noble dog raised by wolves. The critics and the audience raved. He kind of became known as the dog who saved Warner Brothers.
He was probably the most profitable star Warner Brothers had. Every time they got into trouble, they would release a Rin Tin Tin film and bail themselves out. So they referred to him as the mortgage lifter.
You're watching the canine celebrity who earned $300,000 for his master in movies like $1 Million Collar, Tiger.
At one point, Rinty was said to be getting 50,000 fan letters a month. He and his mate were written about as a Hollywood couple.
Mr. and Mrs. Rin Tin Tin staying in the bridal suite. In one case, Nanette is supposedly interviewed saying she's going to give up her acting career until the puppies are older. And this was all written with a very straight face.
But when talkies came in, like a lot of other silent film stars of his day, he was fired.
Warner Brothers sent Lee a letter saying, we won't be needing Rin Tin Tin's services anymore because, as everyone knows, dogs don't talk.
Rin Tin Tin went on the vaudeville circuit. And he did find some work in talkies, including the Lone Defender series. When Rin Tin Tin died in 1932, it was big news, but not the end of the Rin Tin Tin saga, as far as Lee Duncan was concerned.
And he began saying, there will always be a Rin Tin Tin.
So one of Rin Tin Tin's puppies, known as Junior, became the heir, though he was considered a poor performer. And as for the next Rinty, you suggest there may be a little scandal around Rin Tin Tin III.
Yes, Rin Tin Tin III doesn't look anything like Junior.
But direct lineage or not, Rin Tin Tin III enlisted in the Army in World War II. And apparently the harness, the saddlebag, it was all designed and made just for him to use.
Exactly. And
in fact, he was an important symbol for the Army at a time when American pets were being recruited for the U.S. military's first Canine Corps.
people were being asked to part with their dearest companion and send them to the Army without any guarantee they would come back. So the Army needed to inspire people to do that, and Rin Tin Tin was the perfect model.
Then in 1954, Rinty IV launched The Adventures of Rin Tin Tin on TV. It was a huge hit, spawning all sorts of products. And a legendary feud with another canine star. There was kind of a rivalry between Rin Tin Tin and Lassie.
Yeah, it kind of prefigured the Rolling Stones versus the Beatles. you kind of had to choose whether you were a Lassie person or a Rin Tin Tin person.
In 1960, Lee Duncan died, leaving behind a mystery. Why the original Rin Tin Tin, who'd been buried in California, was later entombed in a pet cemetery in Paris.
And maybe part of it was simply the feeling that Rinty should go back to where he was found.
But no matter where he's buried, Rin Tin Tin embodied the spirit of America.
Was he smart? Look. Bart, goodbye, Rinty.